All right. I'm live on YouTube. See, I always wondered why at the beginning of live streams people would be kind of quiet. And now I know why. It's because they apparently have their stream running in the background while they're, gosh. Excuse me. You just have so many things to do just to get the stream up and running. Make sure you have all the windows that you want in the right place and so forth. There's just a lot of moving parts to it that I did not expect. And then, yeah, like I said, you have your stream running in the background and you get an angry text from your wife about something that was totally your fault and you're totally sorry for, and you totally screwed up. I'm not trying to. Anyway, we're here. I'm here live. And it's going to be a fun stream. I'm going to talk for a little bit to myself, mostly. If anybody shows up, that'll be cool. No big deal, though. And we'll also spend some time looking at AI image generation, which will be kind of fun. It's something that I tinker with a little bit. I just find it interesting, to be honest with you. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with it, but beyond that, it's also a useful tool for authors, and I use it for a number of things. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun for us to look at that today. So we'll spend some time on that in a little bit. Really, what I like to use AI image generators for is to take the concepts from my book and kind of bring them to life. It is useful for trying to envision environments and settings and characters and so forth. It's obviously an imperfect medium right now. I don't think that there are some great AI images out there, but I still rely on human beings to make the majority of my artwork, especially the artwork that I use for dedicated book covers. I do use some AI artwork on for books that aren't fully released yet. So, for example, I have an exclusive series for my subscribers that I release weekly chapter updates for, and that series, I use AI images for each of the chapters that I release as a way of giving it a book cover. It just kind of feels weird for it not to have a book cover. And so I've used it for that, but I don't, I'm not planning. In fact, I'm working with my cover artist right now on 7 new covers and eventually another handful or so, probably for the rest of this year, that are for season 2 of Scions of Oth. And so obviously I'm paying him for the covers. The artwork that you see behind me now is in fact his artwork. I'll shout him out at some point here because he does great work. I think he captured a lot of the ideas of the series pretty well, and I trust him to come up with ideas in a way that I couldn't trust AI image generation. So for example, this ship right here, this alien ship, is one that he designed. I kind of explained to him just what it was. I said, this is what this ship does. This is what it's called. Make it for me. I'd be interested to see what you come up with. And half the time, that's what I do is I give him a concept. And unless it's something very specific, I give him the concept and I say, go ahead and run with it. I'm going to trust you on this one because I know what he puts out creatively, and generally it turns out better than anything I could have described to him. There was one of those recently, in fact. It was the cover for uh, book 12. Book 12. The covers are actually being made in advance, so they are ready to go. That's one of the things that I like to get out of the way. So when book 12 comes out, that cover will already have been made for a while. But I digress. The the artwork on that cover in particular just seemed like I basically said I want this one ship on there, and it's gonna kind of look like this shape because it's a funny shaped ship. And then these other ships are new, and I want you to just make something up. And I pretty much told him that, and he delivered something awesome. And one of these days I'll have to go through all of those covers on a stream. I think that could be really interesting to go through every single one of them. There's a little Easter eggs in some of them. Maybe not Easter eggs per se, but they all do reflect some aspect of the story. So this is the cover for Excelsior right here, this image, which is book 7 in the series. This is the beginning of sort of the third act of season 1. And obviously it's a very dynamic cover. The artwork on here is some of my favorite artwork that he's done for me, really. This is actually the front cover design that's immediately behind me, but there actually is a back cover design that goes all the way over there that you can't see. And it's kind of been hidden for a while because these books so far have only been in ebook. I haven't gotten around to making the paperbacks yet for each book in the series, although that is something that I plan to do. And once I do that, then that back cover artwork, which you can kind of see poking out here just a little bit, you'll be able to see it on the back cover of the book, which I think is kind of awesome. So for those who do buy the paperbacks, you get that little extra there of being able to see the hidden artwork, so to speak. It's not there on the front cover. A fun little thing. Not all of the books have that. Some of them do. There was honestly one I remember that it's depicting a giant battle scene, and it was just, there was so much going on. So much going on that I had to be like, yeah, let's move half of all that onto the back cover because it's just taking up a little too much space. And he did it. I mean, first of all, he did what I asked him to. The reason why it was so busy on the front cover in the original proof was because that's what I asked for. And me being the dummy that I am, I didn't think about that. I really should have thought about that when I was asking him to design the cover and giving him the details of the cover design that I wanted. But you learn those things and you get better at it. And I've gotten better at knowing what to ask for from him and knowing when to trust him with his design and his capability. It's just something we become comfortable with. I mean, when you've worked with somebody on that many book covers, I think at this point, when I ask him for a cover and I get a cover back, I have not asked him to make any tweaks at all to, I want to say, well, there was one tweak on that one. That was just a simple misunderstanding. That's not his fault. But but going back, I think it's like a solid streak from book 8. No, book 7, I think, even. This cover behind me now, all the way now to book 12. I haven't had to make any adjustments at all. Just spot on. We kind of got in the groove. There might be some in the future because I ask for some crazy weird things. And if I know my covers are a little out there, I guess people aren't used to seeing chess pieces as spaceships or spaceships as chess pieces. So it's a little quirky. I understand that. I totally recognize that aspect of the design is a little out there, and some people probably look at it and think it's ridiculous, and that's fine. That is what it is. I'm not bothered by that at all. It's an intentional, creative choice, right? But if you think the book covers for season one are a little crazy with like rooks and knights and bishops flying around in space, right? Just wait until you see season two, right? Right? I figured if someone has read through season one, they've read all 9 of those books, and those covers are a little out there, but for the most part, they're pretty tame. You know, for there's science fiction book covers. Season two, you know, it's like being in a relationship, and at a certain point, you realize, I don't, you know, I don't have to. I can be myself. I think that's what I'd say. I can be myself. I can let my quirky side show a little bit because there's some interesting things that are going to be on the book covers in season two that I don't think people are going to expect. If you know anything about chess, though, if you know anything about the history of chess, like going back quite a ways, you're going to see some of these things and you're gonna be like, oh, I get it. I get it. I see what that is. Otherwise, it's going to be like an inside joke, and you're going to have to read the book to understand why that spaceship looks like that. Why is that a thing? So, but there will also be some really cool looking covers in that series too, or in that season rather, of Scions of Oth. There's the next cover would be, let's see, he's working on 13 for me right now. And then 14, I honestly need to think about some more. So I might skip 14. And I need to put some real thought into what comes in the finale of the series. So I have some more thinking to do on those last few covers, but I had a very strong vision going into the beginning of season 2 of what all those covers are going to be like. An update on the writing itself. Book 10, I finished today. The first draft is finished. And so the next step is to edit book 10. I do a pass on my own and just go through it. And that'll take me a little while. Not too long, I hope. I just really need to set aside some time to go through it, probably on a weekend where I have some time where I can just cruise through it, get the whole thing done. I don't like to drag out that editing process when I do it because it makes it less consistent. I'd rather, almost like I'm reading the book as a reader myself, kind of digesting it, and then I can see a lot of the inconsistencies or a lot of the things that were missing on the first pass in the first draft and come back and add those things in. They are inevitable. There are some inconsistencies that I know are there. I'll begin writing and then I'll reach a certain point in the book, in the first draft, where I know something needs to be added. And I, instead of going back and adding it in the very beginning, I just add it where I'm at in the first draft. And then when I come back on that first pass, I will then make those changes and adjustments and add it there. In that step of the editing process, and then it goes off to the editor, the actual editor, and they'll take a look at it and clean it up and make it look all nice and everything, and that will be that. So episode 10, I'm hoping, can go off to the editor within the next week or two, is what I'm hoping I'll be able to do. And then should be ready for release in March. That is the plan anyway. That's the plan. So I'm going to try to stick to it and get a March release out. I'm thinking by my daughter's birthday. and it'll be kind of a sweet little thing because that sounded weird. Let me start over. Um, right. My daughter's birthday is in about a month. So I'd like to publish book 10 by her birthday, or maybe even on her birthday. I think that would be really sweet. But the series initially, those first 9 books, were actually published on my wife's birthday back in October. They were published on Amazon in October, so it'd be sweet. It'd be from my wife's birthday to my daughter's birthday is the idea. At any rate, that's what I'm hoping for. We'll see how that plays out, how that turns out. But my writing pace these days has been pretty solid. I write when I walk, which probably sounds weird to people. I walk and write at the same time. Yep. I use my phone. And I write on my phone as I am walking. I do that about 3 times a day. And the good thing is, I need the steps. I'm fat, so it helps. But the walking actually helps creatively as well. There's just something about the fact that you're going somewhere, you're moving forward, I think actually makes a difference in your ability to problem solve in that moment, in the middle of that. So it's been working well for me. I've been knocking out over 3,000 words a day pretty consistently. Made a couple tweaks and have seen some improvements too. And 3,000 words a day, and that's with a full-time job, I should say, with a full-time job with kids. For those of you who have all those things, right, how precious your time is. And so that means I'm spending roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours writing per day is what it works out to be, depending on the day of the week, depending on how long exactly I spend writing. And I'm getting my steps in at the same time. So it works. And again, creatively, I think it has helped me a lot. Plus, just the fact that I'm on a walk, I can't just stop my walk. I'd be in the middle of the neighborhood, far away from home. So I have to keep walking. So I might as well keep writing. I mean, I'm there. I might as well keep doing it. There's something about that mentally that kind of forces you to just commit to the creative task of writing. Whereas sitting here on my couch, there's a million things that could distract me at any one moment and sap me of any ability to be creative in that moment. So there's just something about putting yourself in that space to be creative that I find helpful for me. You know, Scions of Oth is a science fiction series that I have been writing. Really, the origins of it go back to my first series that I was writing when I was 15, because there are some elements of that story, that original story, that still carry over. Very few elements, and they've been highly polished, and they've transformed and become new things. They've gone through several stages of metamorphosis. They are not the raw, uncooked version of themselves that they were way back when I was 15 years old, but those ideas for characters, for certain settings and things like that have stuck with me that long. And now putting them into story and putting them into this series is kind of the fulfillment of all of that hard work I did when I was younger. And it was a lot of hard work at that time to just be able to write 100 words, let alone thousands of words that I produce now at this stage of my writing career. Scions of Oth is a series that is based off of some pretty simple ideas. People are flawed. They are not perfect. There are no perfect heroes. There is no hero out there that is sinless, that could even be considered a likable person at all times. I take great issue with Superman type heroes. They are not my type of hero. I don't find them very interesting. I find them very one dimensional. It is more the Batman type of hero that I find interesting. Someone who, well, in the case of, if we're taking Batman here as the example, I got myself in this boat. I might as well paddle it. If we take Batman as the example here, obviously he has a past that is riddled with grief and pain and loss. But in many depictions of what we see of Batman in his adulthood, he is not necessarily the nicest person to be around. He's a bit of a grump. He's a bit of a grouch. He's a bit pig-headed. I don't know Batman all that well. Obviously, probably the majority of depictions I've seen were in the cartoon show that was on in like the 90s. That was probably as close as Batman. He had, I guess, he had this way of being able to incorporate the elements of his shadow, if you will, the negative elements of his personality, and incorporate them into his hero persona. Now, in many depictions, and I would say the cartoon version of Batman is a good example of this, he has completed that process of integration to the point where now he is a stable human being for the most part. And he's able to take those elements of his shadow and implement them properly as they were intended to be. And so his superpower really is that he can access those aspects of his personality that other people cannot. Superman has a thing about not killing, for example. I think Batman too. I think every superhero from that era has that same uh, rule for themselves. Fair enough. But you could always tell that Batman was willing to, you know, do what he had to do in a way that Superman seemed above all of that. And so for that reason, I prefer heroes that are a little rough around the edges, that are imperfect, that are sometimes unlikable, and just characters in general that are that way. And so, because most people at some point are unlikable. Most people are unlikable. And maybe it's just an aspect of my personality where I like to write things with some element of realism in them that forces me to say, oh, well, you can never have a character that's that much of a good guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm too jaded. Maybe I'm the one that's jaded. I'm just projecting that on the universe. Maybe that's all writing really is. It's just projecting your own personality flaws and insecurities onto the universe and making a story out of it. Could be. Could be. Anyway, I could go on. Let's have some fun with AI, shall we? So, I've got it up and ready to go already. Let me pull it up here. So I like to use Stable Diffusion for stuff. I find that it's pretty fast, works pretty well. I don't have any paid features that I use. I just don't find any need for it personally. For my purposes and the way that I use AI images, I don't need to pay for it. I'm not using these images in any sort of commercial way whatsoever. I'm simply using these as sort of a way of finding inspiration. So I have several prompts that I use that I like to use. And so, for example, I have one prompt here that show this is for settings. I use these for a variety of different things. I'll go ahead and just drop this prompt in here. This prompt starts with the science fiction environment, and then I have a spot here where I can put in some more details. And it all of the additional things that are added here were added by a prompt extender. I'm not going to get super technical into this. The point is this: when I hit generate, as long as the application is not too busy, it will generate for us some fancy AI images. You oftentimes have to just click the button, guys, is what you got to do. I'm not on any sort of paid plan or anything, so this might take us a while. Is this going to really spoil my live stream? Oh my gosh. Well, that would serve me right, for doing a live stream on Valentine's Day. Oh boy. Yeah. I had a feeling this would happen. So we're going to switch over then to another one that I have. This is the AI Comic Factory. This one's kind of a fun one. So I think, first of all, you can kind of pick your comic style. I generally like to go with either 3D render, but there are a few others that are pretty good. And they've actually added some more since I've used this last. But so, for example, humanoid, I think is kind of a sci-fi style one. So let's put in here. So a story prompt might be something like, let's use Frank Herbert's Dune. Let's see what we get out of that. And then the style or character prompt. Let's use a spaceship captain. Let's see what that looks like. And it's going to take some time to generate here. This one is definitely a little bit slower. I know from having used it in the past compared to the faster version of Stable Diffusion. And I don't honestly know how well it is at making comic books. I never really used it for that specific purpose. I just used it really to come up with images that I could use to represent the characters and setting of my worlds, especially when I have a lot of like new characters and I need to describe them. It is actually pretty helpful to have some sort of character reference there that I can go off of. So we've got some things showing up here. You can definitely see, okay, yep. there's Paul Atreides and his mother, that's for sure. I'll go ahead and try to enlarge some of these. I think, oh, I can't enlarge them, can I? I'm gonna have, do I have to, yep, I'll zoom in. Here we go. So obviously this style is very comic book inspired. You can see it definitely has a strong sci-fi vibe to it. Here, obviously, we're on Dune. This is pretty neat. Like this is the kind of thing right here. So this gal right here, this would be a great example of a character portrait that I would take. This would be a character, for example, that I would be introducing. And the nice thing about having this is I also have something to reference back to when the character shows up again. I don't have to rely on my memory to know what they looked like. Obviously, we got some major weirdness going on right here. I don't know what this is all about. I'm guessing this is how it's interpreting um, a lot of the Fremen uh, here for whatever reason. I guess. And actually, on this slide over here too, not too bad. Now, I have noticed that the quality of the faces tends to be so-so with a lot of these variations. 3D renders tend to do a lot better. This isn't too bad here. The colors are very interesting, and then we've got heads coming out of dunes in the sand. That's par for the course. right? That's par for the course. So this is just an example of what I tend to do. Now, if we switch this to a 3D render, and we'll submit the same prompt and see what it comes up with, because it could come up with something pretty interesting. So we'll give that a moment to do its thing. And while I try to get stable diffusion to work again, I don't think it's going to cooperate with me today. That's okay. What can you do, right? What can you really do? I don't know that you know, AI is an unruly thing, guys. It does not listen to anybody. Oh, this will be interesting. Here we go. You know what? I'll do it like this. Oh boy. So Dune and 3D renders. So still pretty unique. I don't know why they're looking a little bit more like characters from Dora the Explorer, but you know, to each their own. Uh and not terribly bad either, in all honesty. This young man here is very expressive. Like this by itself almost tells a story. What has this young man seen? What what has happened that he has this kind of reaction? We can only imagine, right? And so I think you get how very easily I can take stuff like this and form a story out of it. And now here now, are these the Sardaukar? Is that how it is? How it's been a while since I've read Dune, guys. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But these soldiers in the dunes, this image here is actually one that I might save, uh, because the detailing on the armor, it's just telling you a story. Now, for whatever reason, we've got two kids here sitting in the dunes. I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're having a picnic. They're reading a book. I don't know what they're doing. I can't really tell if all these characters are from Dune or not. But you know, this image here, I like this image. This image isn't too bad. That's actually not too bad. As far as AI images go, even this spaceship here, this is the thing that it can actually be pretty consistent and good at producing um, some some unique objects if you give it the right prompts. Obviously, we gave it something very broad here, so when you give it something broad, it's not going to give you something super specific, but of course it can really, it can surprise you sometimes, right? So let's let's try, you know what, let's try a new prompt. Let's try so again, our story prompt, let's go with a space battle. We'll just go with that. And style character prompts. Let's I don't know. I don't let's leave it kind of broad again. I want to see what we get out of this. This could be interesting. See what we get here when we leave a very broad prompt. And we'll start generating some new images here that will eventually replace all of these ones. It's taking its time, which is, I respect that. I really do. I do respect that. Sometimes you just got to give it a minute. Just got to give it a minute. Yeah, for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess it's been a while since I've used this specific space in Stable Diffusion. I don't recall it being this cartoony when you use the 3D render. All right. All right. All right. Okay. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. So obviously, this guy here in the corner, interesting design for a spaceship. Um, like, not really a battle in space. The prompt is probably just a little too broad. Here we've got a character for some well, I guess space battle. Yep, that could involve a character. She's got armor on. Pretty distinct features here: green eyes, red hair. Imagine that. And looks like we've got this guy looks like he's doing air traffic control in space. Is that what this is? That's kind of what it looks like to me. This looks like an air traffic control terminal, something like that. This doesn't really look like the bridge of a spaceship. He looks like he's in a gaming chair, telling 747s not to run into each other out in space. That's what you get. We've got a young pilot in the cockpit. From what it looks like, kind of odd that we're seeing their face, and kind of, it's like we're looking out the front of the cockpit. That to me is a little odd, but there is definitely a story here. Why is this young individual in this cockpit? They look a little nervous. Perhaps they're having an Anakin Skywalker moment, and they have been forced into some sort of space battle as a small child. Although I think Anakin Skywalker willingly threw himself into that situation. But maybe that's what's going on here. That's an interesting plot idea there. Here we literally just have planes now. Literally just planes. It's a hangar with planes. I guess they look somewhat futuristic, a little bit, a little sleek. And the design between these three, at least the colors are consistent. And we've got this guy over here. He is ready to go. He looks like part astronaut, part space marine, a little bit. An interesting character profile here. Obviously, we can't see a whole lot about him, but we've got some decent features on the face there. It looks like he's got maybe a little bit of a notch in his eyebrow. An interesting nose profile. These are the kinds of things that as an author you go, oh yeah, I could describe that. That sounds kind of neat to get into. And his suit here too. The yellow and the blue, colors communicate a lot of information, but this is nowhere near the prompt that we put in here. Obviously, I don't think it's even close. But this is a very interesting looking image. This damaged ship in some rundown hangar. Obviously, this looks like it's on a planet somewhere. We've got junk all over the place. Maybe somebody's fixing this thing up, trying to get off planet, trying to escape some sort of, corrupt, oppressive government. I don't know. Or aliens, one or the other. Maybe both, right? There's a lot of interesting things that you can glean just from AI. And so I'll sometimes just make these images to come up with ideas for characters, stories. It really is it's great creative fuel. I found personally, if I had to pick an image, any one image, it would be this bottom right-hand corner one here. I think that one to me is the most interesting. I'm probably not going to use it for anything, but it's neat. Pardon me, folks. All right, let's put a more robust prompt in here. Let's go with one of the prompts that I use for my characters. Let me make sure I just have everything in here that I want. Okay, very good. So I will copy and paste that in here. It is a long prompt that I put in there, a very specific one. Not that it's particularly special, but it'll give us some science fiction characters to work with here. We might want to be putting that here in the style prompt, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't know how much that really matters. We'll have to see as it loads up some new images for us. I have to say, the image generation has improved too. I remember when I first started playing with AI images for this kind of purpose, it was interesting, but it produced some wonky stuff. And now you do get some images that are pretty clean. So here we've got this robot. Look at this guy. Look at this guy right here. I'm telling you, folks. See, that to me, pretty interesting. Obviously, a very clean aesthetic, but right here you have a robot, or maybe this is an alien in a suit. I don't know how you want to spin it. Not exactly what this prompt usually yields. It doesn't usually bring this, but I think that's the 3D render aspect of the thing, making it look like that. And then we've got this lady here. She's got this really interesting, like, helmet headdress. I'm not sure. Can't tell if she's royalty or she's, I don't know what. An interesting setting behind her as well. And I don't know. Not a character that is immediately coming to mind of where could I place her. But the armor definitely I find interesting, along with this just weird headpiece. What this opal looking uh, sphere here embedded into her helmet, kind of neat, kind of interesting. And then we have the obligatory funky hands that you always get with AI images. Maybe not the worst here, but yeah, we can skip over that. This thing, oh boy. Now, when you look at this isn't really where the prompt was trying to go, but this right here is what I'm talking about. This whole image is telling some crazy story to me. I look at this and I see these two chums over here, right? In the desert, beneath this giant bicycle helmet looking thing in that's coming out of the ground. And you've got this little, I don't know, a ziggurat right here, some things floating in the sky. This is a mangled moon of some sort. Moons A moon could not be that shape and be that close. It just would not work. But it's there, and then apparently with all these pillars in the distance, uh, this is just a neat one. I kind of like this one. And oh boy, see AI knows, and if we just look at these right here, AI seems to know how to make some of these epic, like this here almost could be the cover of a book. You have, for science fiction folks, you need the big dumb object, is what it's called, the BDO, which is just literally some science fiction technology looking thing that takes up a large part of the cover and grabs your attention. And here in the foreground we have our character. There's a lot of story being told here in this one simple little image, because we've got this tower sort of structure with all these other structures you kind of sprawling out around it, built into rocks, with a path that looks like it's paved with wooden planks. What is going on here? And this young lady does not look like she is ready to dive into a science fiction setting. This looks like perhaps this is an abandoned settlement of an ancient advanced civilization, something that they left behind that she's going to go and explore, and probably get into a whole lot of trouble in there and get lost and almost die, things like that. That's, to me, that's what initially comes to mind when I see something like this. And this thing, okay, so this is pretty neat. Let me zoom in. So here we've got some sort of science fiction castle in the backdrop. The foreground, obviously, we have a young woman. Looks like maybe she's wearing some sort of advanced suit technologies that does something. I don't know. She's got this little light on her back. I don't know what that means. But these two portals, sort of, or maybe not portals, but monitors, whatever these happen to be, right here, that kind of frame the space. And then these just odd objects, like this one looks like a robot of some sort, but none of them look exactly the same. Nothing here that's just really screaming at me, to tell some sort of story. But it's I'm sure that there's something there. Just the way that AI can come up with this stuff. I know it's just regurgitating stuff that humans have already done. I know that, but sometimes you look at it and you have to wonder. So here we have almost this. Wow, this is almost more like a character concept art sort of piece. You'll see these from time to time, and in fact, you can prompt it specifically if you say something like character concept art, black and white image, something like that. And these can be very good, very useful. Doesn't really usually inspire me a lot in terms of a story, but I can see character details from here. Like obviously she's some sort of pilot, judging from the helmet, most likely, and maybe this is a character that I would write into my story. Now, a little too cartoony for the type of stuff that I write, so I don't think that I'm gonna use this one specifically. I prefer a little bit more of a gritty aesthetic, but I think you can get the gist of it. And here, a little bit of the weird eyes going on. This will sometimes happen. That background is really trippy, man. There's a lot happening there in the background. This looks like one of her hands. I really like the aesthetic of this armor, and really the overall character has a lot of interesting elements. Sometimes you have to overlook these little flaws that the AI just kind of randomly puts in there. But if this, I don't know, just the way this looks like it's her arm. Am I the only one that's thinking that's her arm? I'm going to pretend that is, and in which case, why does it look like that? How did that happen? There's this crest here below her breastplate. What is that? What is that, a symbol or something? Right? You can start to ask a whole lot of questions, and sometimes these characters wind up to me fitting into the worlds that I'm already creating and working on, and sometimes images like this kind of beg for me to create a new world. So very interesting. I would say that some of these images are pretty close to the prompt, what I usually get out of this prompt, but some of them are a little different too, which is fine. I don't mind that. Let's grab another one here. This is a specific one that I use. I think I'm just going to put in science fiction in here, and then for the style and character prompt, I'll put this in. This is a monster character prompt, if you will. That's kind of the simple way to put it. We'll see what it spits out for us here. But yeah, some of those were actually pretty interesting images. None of them that I think I could grab and just immediately turn into a book cover. That's why I don't even think to do that. That's not even something that kind of enters my mind. You need a real human for that sort of thing. All right. Well, what we got going on here? So this is interesting. We've got sort of a science fiction cityscape. Not really, like you can see here, a Cyclops monster. Not sure how it got that from this, but hey, an interesting cityscape nonetheless. An interesting setting, perhaps. Kind of Tron-like with the lights on the ground, to me, a little bit. Here we've got this young man here who looks like he's a member of the Green Lantern Corps almost, right? In a laboratory. Interesting. I think I might have to turn off the 3D render because I think that's what's making everything a little cartoony. Because we've got this guy here, this goofy little creature. Obviously, I've found that AI has trouble understanding what a cyclops is supposed to be. It doesn't know what a cyclops is supposed to be, and so it just kind of looks at that word and goes, "What?" Or if you try to explicitly tell it, a monster with only one eye that is a cyclops. Yeah, it can't figure that out usually. Now here, this image is more of an object. I see the cyclops aspect here, this central eye-like shape, but not really hitting it on the nose. Now this is okay. This is interesting. We've got two characters here. This is intriguing. Obviously, she has the sort of shocked look on her face that a lot of AI characters tend to have. But we've got a young woman with this little green creature. Uh, he doesn't seem to be any threat to her at all. He seems to be just as concerned, maybe a little less so than she is. And they're in some sort of warehouse. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make this stuff up. Here we've got a robot with what looks like a green visor. Well, yeah, we're good with that one. Hey, a cyclops. It actually made a cyclops. That's, bravo. Congratulations to you, Stable Diffusion, for being able to take my prompt and get part of it right. I'm not going to blame you for the rest of it. And we have oh boy. we've got this happy guy here. What's he doing? Those eyes. You cannot. I don't write horror, guys. I don't write horror, so I don't know that I can use this. If I'm being honest, I don't think I can use this. Sadly. So let's remove the 3D render. Excuse me. We'll remove that prompt. I think what we'll do is we'll do neutral. So there is no style. And I'm going to make this an even grid. Oh, it's already doing it. Well, there you go. So it's generating some new images for us. We'll do maybe one or two more rounds of this here before we call it a night. And that should be good. Oh, boy. Okay, a lot to unpack here. It's still... What's interesting... We've got the cityscape here, which we had in this upper left-hand corner. We've got like this warehouse with the jacket, a green monster, the shelves on either side, which was something similar. It's like, is it repeating a lot of these same little details? Because this looks like it's straight out of that same thing that we saw before. This little monster dude right here, though. I like this little monster dude. He looks like he should be in a video game. Right? The little horns and the one giant green eye, not too bad. Some robots working in the lab. Hey, the Cyclops thing again. It figured it out a little bit. That's not bad. That's not bad. You got to take what you can get, folks. Sometimes you live by the AI and you die by the AI, and sometimes it gives you something that is great, and sometimes it gives you uh, hot garbage. You don't always know what you're going to get. All right, let's do one last one here. Then we might see if we can get Stable Diffusion to work rather than the AI Comic Factory. Because the AI Comic Factory, I think, has some kind of built-in prompts that kind of warp the image generation a little bit in a way that I don't really like. Aha! What I'm thinking actually happened here was that it just kind of recycled some things, but interesting. Okay, so we've got some interesting stuff to look at here. All right, so we got this gal right here. This is kind of a almost a cyberpunk aesthetic with these glowing green goggles. Definitely not a Cyclops monster. Definitely not. But interesting nonetheless. Could be a good character concept. This is freaky. This looks like this looks like an anime almost. We've got a young girl walking down the highly reflective. Can you guys see the reflection there in that marble, or is that glass? Walking down the street made of glass, and this big giant storm, which looks like it has two eyes and a mouth, with the Capitol building on top of it. That is an anime. Somebody needs to make this anime, and it better, like 90% of it better just be uh, her talking to some sort of woodland creature or something like that. Here, okay, very interesting. Character close up. We've got a face here, some facial features. Honestly, a very simple face, nothing particularly unique. A beautiful young woman, but green eyes, otherwise not super interesting beyond that. All beautiful people look the same. They all do. All beautiful people look, well, maybe not exactly the same, but they all look fairly similar. And so they are, for that reason, some of the hardest to describe, I find. I think it's much easier to describe someone ugly than it is to describe someone beautiful. And for that reason, I think there is actually something beautiful about that, something distinguished. There you go. That's your happy thought for the day. And we've got a scientist in a lab, not at all bothered by well, first of all, not at all bothered by her nose, which the AI kind of rendered terribly here, or by this crazy looking alien standing next to her. He does not look like a dude who I would want to stand next to. It looks like he clearly benches, 315 plus, at least 315, folks. I mean, look at those front delts right there. And, but he probably skips leg day from the look of it. And all these weird homunculi. Oh boy. That's a story right there. We were talking about anime just a little bit ago. It clearly took, excuse me, it clearly took some inspiration from that. We've got a cast of characters here, some green blob monsters in the background, and this giant towering Cyclops monster. We got something to work with here. We really do. We really do. And some basic level. See, here you can easily tell, okay, we've got four distinct characters to work with. They each have their own unique aspects about them. Right. I think that's pretty clear. Well, here we are. Interesting. We've got some aliens around here. This young lady with a pair of goggles on her head. Clearly, she's involved in some sort of, um, I guess, I don't know. Her getup looks like she's pretty much prepared for anything here. A little bit of style, but definitely a little more functional. Although I have to say that heel on that boot, eh, that's there for a reason. Give you a few extra inches of height, I suppose. But that's also useful as well. But she's got the gloves, the the clothing is rather form fitting, which makes it easy to move around. And then these goggles, it's like, hey, nobody better get in your way. Maybe she's here in this dark alleyway to enforce the law. Who knows? We'll never know. Oh boy. So, and then I would consider this a gem right here. By no means perfect. I think the setting around it is fairly interesting, but this right here, this monster concept, this is something that honestly, this is the type of image that I would save and and catalog if I were trying to make something along these lines, right? Because the AI did pretty well with this. It has almost an amorphous kind of look to it, rather interesting. A very angry monster, a very angry dude. I like it. And then to finish things off, we've got a superhero looking character here who now has a third eye. From the looks of things, this image looks a little like it has a filter going over it or something like that. I don't think I did. No, I highlighted it. That's what it is. I did that. So yeah, we've got this character here. It looks again like a superhero, some sort of mask on her face. I don't know what. Probably not something that I would wind up using. But that guy over there is pretty neat. So I'll give Stable Diffusion one last chance. One last chance to give me the prompt I was looking for, which it probably won't, because a lot of people are probably using it right now, and so it's not gonna give me anything I asked for. Rats. Oh well. You win some and you lose some, folks. Some days you are the pigeon, some days you are the statue. So that's not exactly the type of images that I would get all the time. Maybe I'll have to do a stream at a different time where Stable Diffusion isn't so busy, I guess. And I can actually get some more interesting images and probably pull out some images that I've already used for other purposes. But I'll leave it at that, folks. Thank you for tuning in. And for any of you who happen to be watching this stream later, because I know it is Valentine's Day when I'm streaming this. So not a whole lot of people here tonight. I'm not too bothered by that. That's no problem. But signing off, my name's Jack, and I write books. Be good.